Watching videos as soon as you wake up has gotta be bad for you, right? Wrong. Let me make the case that if your goal is mental health rather than productivity, the best way to start your day is with 15 to 30 minutes of watching YouTube videos, specifically videos where the primary visual is the creator's face talking to the camera, just like this one. I'll explain the evidence, the theory, and how you can try it out. This concept is known as morning faces therapy, an idea first proposed by experimental psychologist Seth Roberts in 2004. And what he found through personal experimentation is that looking at videos for 15 to 30 minutes first thing in the morning significantly boosted his mood throughout the next day, and it would last the entire day, which means that if he did it every day, he would feel good every day. And he started off watching talk shows on TV, but eventually he experimented with YouTube videos and found the exact same effect. But just because it worked for him doesn't mean that it would work for anybody else, right? So Seth published his findings on his blog, and his readers were able to successfully replicate the results that he got. And so this idea eventually got some traction, but it never really went mainstream. It did get covered by Scientific American and the New York Times, but I'm hoping that this video could breathe some life back into it. How much did it boost his mood? About 2 points on a 10-point scale, which means that if generally you sit at around a 6 out of 10 on most days, you can expect to go up to an 8 out of 10 and stay there for the entire day. I've tried it for a few weeks now, and I can say that my days are a little more bearable. And at the very least, I look forward to the morning because I get to cozy up and watch a YouTube video in the morning with no guilt at all before starting my day. Now, if you actually want to try this out, what does the protocol look like? Well, before I get into it, I gotta say, this is not a substitute for professional treatment if you have a mental health disorder. Now, that being said, here's what you do. Within the first hour of waking up, you're going to watch 15 to 30 minutes of YouTube videos where the primary visual is one or a couple of people's faces, ideally where they make at least some eye contact with the camera. And I'll link to some channels in the description below that are good for this, but feel free to recommend some more in the comments. And then you gotta actually look at the faces throughout the video. You can't just leave the video playing and avert your eyes elsewhere. That won't work. In terms of device selection, it doesn't matter if it's a phone or a laptop or a TV. What matters is that your brain properly registers the faces. So I will say that if you are watching it on your phone, make sure that it's on full screen so the faces are large enough to be able to be properly registered by your brain. And then you are done. You could just go about your day as usual, and within a few days you should notice that you are consistently in a slightly better mood than usual. Now, why does this work? Well, Seth believed that because we lived in tribes throughout human evolution, that we would have face-to-face social contact first thing in the morning with family and friends every day soon after waking up, and that we've come to actually need this to thrive, just like we need sunlight in the morning to thrive. And so simulating that face-to-face social contact is what we're aiming for here. Does it feel a little bit Black Mirror-esque and dystopian that we are having to simulate this? Yeah. And I believe that if you can, that the best thing to do is get the real thing, right? Or as close to it as possible, meaning that as soon as you wake up, go talk to your family or your spouse or your roommates or FaceTime someone for 15 minutes before starting your day. But it is hard to do that on a consistent basis, which is why I wanted to offer this YouTube option as a backup plan. And man, our society is so fucked. I know. But I gotta think about solutions, man. It's how my brain works. I think this might be one of the reasons that people get addicted to YouTube or TikTok. They just want to watch videos first thing in the morning. Typically, it gets a bad rep, but I don't think it's as simple as dopamine addiction or some random buzzword. I think maybe it's meeting an unmet need that we have for face-to-face social contact first thing in the morning. Wouldn't that make sense? And the last thing that I'll say is that while Seth did rule out a bunch of confounding variables, I'll link his articles below, This isn't exactly the gold standard of science, right? It's not a large scale, double blind, placebo controlled, randomized trial. It's just a dude and some of his readers who tried out a thing and noticed that it helped them. And so while Seth was somewhat credible, he was also kind of controversial. And so I would love to see a real study done on this properly to rule out the placebo effects. But until then, anecdotes are all we've got. And the good news here is that there's no risk involved in watching a video or two in the morning. So do your experimentation. Let me know what happens. Report back in a few days. Let me know in the comments if you see any results. Peace.